um, because I was out late with some friends, and then when I got back, it was pretty late. I would say it's around like 11 or 12, and then I was pooped because yeah, I also like went to the gym as well, so like everywhere is like sore and all that stuff. But the generosity practice, there was one on Thursday, I believe. Somebody holding up the door at the subway station, so I gave him $1. I think that was probably the only, the only, sorry, the only. It's not coronavirus, but anyway, the only dollar that I gave. And then work was like pretty good, I would say. Probably. Oh yes. So there's something to discuss over there, but that might be better reserved for off the video. I suppose there's something just like some office, always some office examples because I did not know how to answer in that situation. If after private discussion we think it's good, we can recap it for the viewers. Like if it's good stuff, we can definitely recap it or something.
Or we can edit it out. Okay, we'll go ahead and let's record it and see what happens.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So I guess
and we can edit it if we want to.
Right, exactly. So basically, yeah, the question here, I remember last time, we were talking about, how, salaries and, compensations don't get, like people don't talk about them because, conventionally you can stir up, feelings of jealousy and, like comparison, right? These are things that will impact the workplace.
And it gives the people power. That's the important one.
Right, exactly. So now I'm curious, when somebody asks you, the question, what were your numbers? Like, was it below this or like they give you a number? Like, is it like above or below N, right? And so, like how do we answer in these situations? I guess like this is more of the case here.
That's very interesting because I've always been on the other side of that in the sense of can I keep my mouth shut and not go around asking?
That's why I keep it. But people will ask you like, oh, is it above or below this number here? So how like what do we do? Like this is like
you can address the feelings directly.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you would do that is that, well, if I'm below this line, I guess you feel good. And if I'm above the line, then you'll feel bad because of jealousy or something. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And just go with that, and that'll change the topic so that you never have to actually answer the question until you know that it's the right and safe thing to do. See, the way that the question is addressed is already intentionally shady.
Correct. Exactly.
Because they're not coming right out with, what do you make?
Gotcha.
They're coming up with, let's draw this boundary, and so that gives you the opportunity to address feelings.
Exactly.
That should, in fact, bond the friendship, which is, in fact, what you want to do anyway. It doesn't matter who makes what.
Right.
The question is can we be friends together?
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. I think maybe after the video, I can then tell you what I did in that situation, and then maybe you can, yeah. After the because I had to.
Does it matter?
No, not really. But that's why it should be out of the video. It's just like interesting, some more concrete. But anyway, yes. So after that, most of the the fun has been, the informal practice has always been fun. So as we mentioned last time, the emphasis is on playing with some of my instincts, and basically, especially for me, the the procreation instinct. And I think so. Let me tell you this whole pickle. It's not really a pickle. It's not even a thing. But let me tell you because I think there is an opportunity for a practice here. So around the end of the week, some of my coworkers discussed college life, like what college was like, and then one thing led to another, and I basically remembered what I was like the first or the second year in college. Now the deal there was that this is before mindfulness meditation. Well, let me just say this is before I met you, and so before I had effective effective tools to deal with this. I remember this still like clearly now that they mentioned it. So you can listen to this and then see if it's a combination of guilt and restlessness. But I think there's an opportunity here. But hear me out. So basically, I think this must have been sophomore year, and I remember very distinctly in discussion, winter. I'm sitting in the front row, and then this girl walks in like late to discussion, and that was the point of like a huge crush on her. And for a while, things are fine. And then I was like, yeah, let's grab lunch. And then basically it didn't work out. But in my ignorance, basically I ended up bothering her multiple times during the year. Even when she flat out said like she wasn't interested, and but sometimes she kept in contact a little bit. And I remember
hope beyond hope.
Yeah, and so you can imagine how silly that was. So when I looked back, and so there were even nights where
don't judge yourself for waking up to ordinary behavior.
Yes, and there were even...
Congratulate yourself instead for, wow, I'm glad I'm over that. Wow, I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, and...
Okay? You don't have to see it as, now that I'm awake, I can judge that to be bad behavior.
Yeah.
No, it was...
That's good.
It was absolutely ordinary, normal behavior for a young guy like yourself to behave that way. There's nothing to be ashamed of. But aren't you glad you don't have to do it now?
Yeah, and then I remember, like at some points, the crush was so intense that there would be there would be days where I would basically wait, for her to reply or something, and then when I got a response, I would be so happy that day. Or like nights where like we discussed last time, where you literally would not be able to sleep because the mind is so anxious, and basically held in a state of suspense. So these were things I remember. Now I still remember, in my ignorance, sometimes I had bothered her, and also basically blindly tried to keep going at it. And sometimes I think back, and then I remember, there were times where, you think that there's hope beyond hope, because there were multiple times that, I remember at the end of sophomore year, I basically asked her out and she said no, but then junior and senior year, she would sometimes, like drop by, or like, we would go on some walks. And one particular thing that I remember as being kind of hurtful that I did was that, in an attempt to, talk and crack some jokes, I had basically tried to crack a sarcastic joke where I said, you need to brush up on your English. And I think her English wasn't that good, so I think she took it seriously. And I distinctly remember this because I remember that she, like had like a kind of like a hurt like look on her face. And at that point, I remember thinking this very clearly now that, they brought it up, and now I remember it in my message, that I was like, oh my God, like no amount of explanation is like, at that point in time, I remember thinking, I don't think she's going to believe me when I said that it was a joke, like not, that I wasn't dissing her seriously. Now, fast forward to basically today. So everything is, it's fine, and over, I think in 2017, I graduated in 2016, and in 2017, sometimes when it's New Year, I said, oh, Happy New Year, and she'll be like, oh, thanks for the message. And actually, yesterday, because my coworkers were talking, they were like, oh yeah, you could just like say hello, because I was talking to them about some of my college friends. And I was like, yeah, coronavirus, like hope you're doing fine. She was like, yeah, it's all fine, thanks for the message. Now, let me be absolutely clear here. I have no delusion at this point, after all of our training, that I have no desire to get back. But what I do see maybe is an opportunity to just say, hey, like I've also wanted to say, like also like wanted to apologize, to give you like a long due apology. I remember that, like sorry, because like I remember that I probably bothered you a lot, and I said one thing that was particularly hurtful, which was you should brush up on your English, because she was an international student. Now you can, and so
I can understand that directly. Let's do this way though. Before you give the apology, the first thing you want to say is, wow, I'm really surprised at how good your English is. Say that in a way that lifts her up.
Yeah.
So that then gives you room then to offer the apology. It'll be taken even more sincere.
Yeah, because I think I'm not sure because I don't know if she might interpret it as like some kind of other thing. So I was just thinking I would actually type the apology in Chinese because I typed it in English like the like oh coronavirus, but I was actually thinking yeah I can just write the thing in Chinese instead and then I can just say it or something like that. I don't know. I really don't know. But I sent it.
I think that you should wait until you have a chance to talk to her directly.
Oh, I don't think that's gonna happen because I think she's in China, so it's not gonna happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I misinterpreted. I thought
Oh
she
no.
was here in New York and trying to
Yeah.
connect up with you.
No, definitely not.
Okay,
No.
all right.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Like, so yeah, so I'm definitely not trying to do anything here, but I just sense yeah, it's an easy opportunity to just write. Like I just realized like how ignorant I was, like 4 or 5 years ago, and so I was like, I think this is an easy chance to. I mean, if it's hard, like if it's okay, then just leave it. But like, you might think that yeah, this is maybe at least I think it's probably a combination of guilt and restlessness. Now that I understand what I had been doing 4 or 5 years ago. I was
Yes.
this is probably a long due.
However, it does fit in with the Dhamma in a way that you haven't mentioned that. So let me mention it this way.
Yes.
Is because we have covered this, and so I don't have to go give you a big Dhamma talk about it. But the fourth knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
the fourth knowledge on the way through Sotapan, in fact, the beginning waking up of the fruit of Sotapan is this knowledge of wrongdoing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, it's really, really been an eye opener to understand this because when we're not Dhammadutes, when we're not practicing, when before meditation or even after we begin meditation, still the normal way that humans act
Mm-hmm.
is to try to protect the self.
Right.
The way to protect the self is to always gloss over wrongdoing.
Yes. Exactly.
But now that you're practicing generosity, you're recognizing that, wait a minute, this wrongdoing that I did is now a burden that I continue to carry.
Right. Right.
To where in the suttas it talks about
Mm-hmm.
that if a monk, for instance, just as an example, has broken some patimokkha rule,
Mm-hmm.
then the correct thing to do is for him to go to his teacher
Mm-hmm.
or the most senior or elder monk that he can easily get a hold of, hopefully more than 20 years,
I see.
and confess,
Exactly.
and then take the retribution that is set out for it.
I see.
All right, now that's kind of hard to do in the Western world and lay society, but here's a clear example of that.
Yes.
Is that yes, you do owe this young woman an apology.
Apology.
Have the joy of giving it freely.
I see. Okay. Got it.
Because the apology is not
Mm-hmm.
a reflection upon the fact that you are a bad person.
I see.
That has that the qualities and issues of self-doubt.
I see.
So in other words, instead of seeing yourself as I can do good now, but I really screwed up before,
Mm-hmm.
is to I can see clearly now how the whole world is a mess,
Mm-hmm.
including who I was in the world.
I see.
In other words, just don't take it personally.
I see. I see.
And don't take the apology personally.
I see.
It's in fact taking things personally is being selfish or taking the self. I mean, it's just so easy to see. It's just like, why couldn't I see that before? Certainly I give apologies. I give them easily.
Yeah. I remember.
But I'm not actually sorry. So in my apologies, I generally don't use the word sorry or I'm sorry. In fact, I could use the word sorry easy enough. But an I'm sorry, no, I am not. I can apologize freely for wrongdoing, but I don't have to feel bad. I can feel wonderful that I'm capable of trying to make amends for.
Yes.
And in fact, telling her in the original scenario that I was thinking of, to tell her how good your English is now is actually a kind of a way of undoing the fact that you insulted her with it before.
Yeah, I probably
Okay, and so this whole quality of making retribution or undoing the damage as best we can is a noble act.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if you mention it like this, what I'll probably just say is, I'll probably just, say like, I remember the particular instance where I tried to crack the joke, and then after I apologize for that, I'll just put in like a little blurb afterwards. I was like, yeah, your English is pretty good now. It's like, put a smiley face there.
Okay, all right. So, don't take this particular example too literally.
I see.
Because this whole thing that I'm talking about may, in fact, have threads or roots right into that conversation about who makes how much money.
Oh, okay.
Okay. In other words, are we going to own the truth?
Okay.
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, but first it'll piss you off. How long are we going to stay pissed off at the fact that we screwed up?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
or how long are we going to be, let us say, pissed off at having to keep a rule at the company that I don't agree with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was well aware, like, for example, like, when I reflected on this, I was well aware, like, everything was fine. It's like, part of this is, going back into the past, actually, and then making myself go through it all over again. Because, like, many times, this happened, after I graduated, like, this happened before I graduated, and as you can see in countless videos where I talk with you, I'm pretty happy. And so
I really enjoy that, Willy. You're really a Dhamma dude, and I told you that before, right? I love it the way that you're just howling with laughter nonstop.
And like, basically, part of this, part of me knows that, this is really just dredging, like going back into the past and then making me relive it all over again and then coming back and say, yeah, let's do something. But part of me also says, it's pretty easy. This is something that it's not like you have to go to China or something. And then and this is a couple words away. And I'm sure that, this is an apology that you can afford.
Well, this is not a really, really big deal.
Correct.
This is not like hitting someone with your car. This is a very small thing.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out that it's got two different steps or two different qualities to it. Okay, in the beginning, when it's still a path factor for Sotapan, when it's the fourth knowledge that is on the path to become Sotapan, is when we're willing to look at what we're doing wrong both now and immediately before. But it's also okay to go kind of back into the past also.
Right.
That even AA sees that as a quality, that one of the things that the drunk needs to do is to go back and to apologize to the people that he hurt while he was on his alcoholic binges or whatever like that. So it begins to, because it makes us reflect upon suffering in the sense of, look at how my behavior causes ordinary people suffering.
Right.
And it still does, because they're still ordinary. They haven't gotten the Dhamma yet.
Right.
But in fact, this step that we're talking about that is associated with the AA is still part of the path.
Oh, I see.
It's not the fruit of the path yet until step 7, when we begin to take absolute delight in the Dhamma, that now we can go back and relook, reminisce, and be willing to admit happily every darn thing that I would be judged upon, or that I would judge myself. I'm not going to judge it, but I'm going to recognize that I might need to give an apology for this.
All right.
Let's go have a ball. Let's go on an apology bench. Let's apologize to everybody for everything.
Okay.
Almost as if we're getting a load off our chests.
Okay, okay. I can do that. I can certainly do that. Okay.
Okay, now here's another way of phrasing this.
Mm-hmm.
There is a sutta, number 64, I think it is, or 66, one or the other. Hang on, I'll
Mm.
grab it and look that up. Not so important. You can do that. It's
Uh-huh.
either 64 or 66, and the analogy is someone gets shot with an arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so the friends see that he got shot by an arrow, and so they summoned a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And there the doctor is, ready to do doctorly kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy says, wait, before you pull this arrow out, I
Mm-hmm.
want to know who shot me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know why. I
Mm-hmm.
want to know what kind of bow and what kind of arrow and all of those kind of details. And then when I know what happened, I
Mm-hmm.
can pull this arrow out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the whole point about understanding it from this perspective is pulling the arrow out, pulling the dart out
Mm-hmm.
is a major point in the cure.
I see.
Okay, if we leave it inside, it'll continue to fester. The same thing is true about the information of having hurt someone. So
Correct.
it works in both directions. Sometimes we're the bow shooter,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yes.
and sometimes, but in either case,
Mm-hmm.
the point is to get that arrow out,
Right. Okay. I see.
and then real curing can be done.
I see.
This is the point about then the curing can be done is then the levels above the sotapan, but the sotapan becomes a state of delight
Oh, I understand now. Okay.
so that you can be delighted with everything that happens, including your own screw ups,
I see. I see. Okay.
because they're not my screw ups. They're not personalized. We take everything personally, and that's why we were afraid to admit wrongdoing,
I
is
see.
because somehow I'm a lesser person or I'm not. In other words, I've got to protect the self or myself.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I want to keep it secret.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Now, there's two Pali words. One is hairy, and the other is opata.
Mm-hmm.
Hairy means basically shyness or embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
Where opata
Mm-hmm.
is the realm of uh, grief
Mm-hmm.
and the guilt,
Mm-hmm.
the recognition of the wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
So ordinary people, they're generally shy in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that I I won't even worry about whether this was wrongdoing or not. I just make sure nobody knows that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I'm an ostrich hiding my head in the sand,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that the only person who really matters about knowing whether you did it or not is you.
Oh.
that in fact I can think about wrongdoing that I did, and the person doesn't remember it, doesn't have a clue, doesn't know what I'm talking about, and I felt guilty all of these years.
Oh, I see, I
So
see.
that's another kind of reason to get it out, is because we are often embarrassed by things
Mm-hmm.
that are in fact not embarrassing to
Mm-hmm.
other people. But we don't want people to know, because we would assume that
Mm-hmm.
we would feel embarrassed by their knowing what I did wrong. And
Oh.
so that's generally why we're in a state of denial.
Oh, like holding secrets, you mean?
Holding secrets, exactly. And we're going, by the way, all the way into encryption.
I see. Hmm.
That someday, by the way, just as on the side, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When quantum computers get going and AI gets really good,
Mm-hmm.
they will be able to decrypt anything
Mm-hmm.
simply because of meaning. In other words, the AI will figure out the meaning, but never ever understand the algorithm of the encryption. It'll never figure out the encryption of the algorithm, but that's not the point anyway. It's the meaning of the message. And AI will go directly from this encryption to the meaning of the message without ever having to figure out how to decrypt it.
I see.
You understand where I'm coming from? Okay. You could call it AI, then will be somehow machine-oriented intuition.
I see. Right. Okay, I see. Okay.
But given that aside, things are going to get pretty hairy for the human race because of AI. But looking at that whole word about encryption, why do people want to have encryption is because they want to hold secrets. They don't want other people to know their wrongdoing.
Right.
What's it going to be like when humans can't hide anymore? When AI, see, here's the point about that. In a very small town or village, or in a large family, it is really hard to hide wrongdoing. But the young man goes and lives in the city, and now he can easily get away with it because of the information. Well, when AI really takes over, it's going to be a global village then again, and nobody's activities are not kept secret. Everything will be known.
I mean, London is already doing that with the facial recognition.
They're all just touching the surface. They're just scratching the surface. AI is going to know everything.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Okay, so in this way, the whole point is that people want privacy because they want to avoid embarrassment.
Right.
Okay,
right.
But that's not the point. Embarrassment is not the point. It's the recognition that the wrongdoing was wrong.
Okay.
Okay, and in that sense, we feel guilty about it, or that we want to make some sort of retribution to fix the problem. That leaving a problem unresolved leaves us with a sense of dissatisfaction.
I see.
That it's better to go ahead and get it off your chest and resolve it and take the punishment for it, sometimes even if that's going to jail.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so that we're beginning to wake up now. That's the whole point about this Opata, but it's still not yet noble. It's still the ordinary mind.
You mean like the getting rid of the feeling, like the guilt associated with this? That's still ordinary?
Well, yes, because that's why people feel guilty a lot.
I see.
And one of the main reasons for feeling guilty is that we give ourselves from our old past, our attachments to rites, rules, and rituals, that part of the brain that Freud calls the superego and Byrne calls the parent ego state, will then give the child an order. Like go on a diet. You ought to go on a diet, or other similar things. And then the child says, no, I don't want to. And then the child rebels. And then the next thing is they feel guilty because of that rebellion. And now guilt is the number one experience, and they've kind of forgotten about the fact that it was it was in a conversation between the parent ego state and the child ego state. And now people are just left with a sense of feeling guilt, and they don't even know why. So that shows why it's so common and ordinary.
Okay, I see. Yeah, so I'm just trying to like process some of this. So several things. So the first thing is, people hold secrets because they want to avoid, embarrassment, right? Like that, maybe they perceive something as not permissible, so they hold secrets, right? And then the next thing that's related to this is correction of your wrongdoing.
Well, when people recognize the guilt and want to do something about it, that's when they do the correction of the wrongdoing in order to get rid of the feelings of guilt, to feel better about it.
That's
get it off their chest, so to speak.
Right, and so my understanding is it's still ordinary because they want to get rid of the guilt. That's still some kind of aversion, and also you're bringing, well, like we're bringing in notions of good and bad, right? Like that whatever I did was bad, and I kind of want to be good again. So let me correct what was done there. So then what? So then, if I'm correct, doesn't that mean that the noble view is okay? So there was wrongdoing. Let's be happy about it, and let's just all right. Like noble view.
In a way, to start off talking about what would be the noble right view is that now we become Sherlock Holmes of dukkha.
I see.
That we're on the lookout for it. And in the beginning, we begin to find way too much of it, and so we begin to feel guilty and depressed and all of that kind of stuff. But that's just getting it going. Once we begin to have the resolve that we're not going to cause ourselves and other people's trouble, that we're going to look for ways for people to feel good, not look for ways for us and others to feel bad. Once we make that change, that's kind of the noble attitude, which is coming out of the attitude of being a loser into being a winner.
I see.
So how does the winner then handle his own wrongdoing? With full admission, okay, I screwed up.
Oh, okay, I see.
So we become much more honest in the noble sense that we begin to be honest, but we're happily honest or free from it because we're no longer personally attached to who it was that did the wrong deed. It was just done, and I saw it, and let's get over it. Let's apologize for it.
Oh, okay. That's the noble view, right? Like, oh,
that's the noble view, and everybody is friends again.
Oh, okay. So the noble view is also right. Like, yes, there was wrongdoing, but I don't have to feel bad about it, right? Like, it's okay. So it's like the noble view is kind of like, yeah, there was wrongdoing, but it happened look how far ago that was. Right? Like okay, it was wrong, but let's like apologize and get on with it. I see.
Or let us apologize happily. And fully own it. Yes, I screwed up. I don't have to make excuses. See, many times when people are apologizing, they want to still dance around it and not take full responsibility.
I see. Got it. And what about
they want to give the reasons? Oh, well, I thought this and I thought that, and you already figured out even at that one time that kind of stuff, that dancing around the issue, would not go to work.
Oh, I see. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so then that means that I have two things to apologize to, because then the next thing is actually another girl at the end of high school, one of my high school friends. I won't bore you with the details, but yeah, basically the end result. So sometimes, the end result is yes, again, acting out of some wrongdoing over there, and we she seems fine with it. Like we've actually met up after college for lunch and everything, and again, there was no explicit apology, but now that we're talking about this, I actually feel like that is another apology in the making. Let's go for it. We're on talking terms. We're still friends. It's fine. But I feel like, again, like an apology is in order. Sounds like fun then. All right, 2 apologies. This is I'm actually glad that we chose to look at some of this instincts, because yeah, like there's definitely wrongdoing like over there. Yeah, but yeah, sounds like yeah, two wrongdoings, 2 apologies that I can give happily. Now, what about now? I'm kind of curious. Now that we're talking about happily giving apologies, what about cases where apologies are not possible? Then would the noble right view be, all right, it's fine. Then that's the way it is. What if apologies are not possible, right?
Some are not.
Yeah, some are not. I'll be very honest. Yeah, some are not. Third year in in college, we our suite mates are in every year in our college we have to do a lottery system for like say housing lottery, like to see if we get to live on the upperclassmen like dormitories, and if you don't get into the upperclassmen dormitories, you have to find a place off campus and rent, and the university subsidizes you. So in the first year, we had 5 people in our group of like our suite mates, and one of them actually had the top spot, and so like the earliest slot, so he was able to get us into the one of the best buildings. Now, come time for like every year when the year ends, you have to basically resubmit for the lottery. And I remember, at the third year, the end of the third year, basically, there was a disagreement on like rooms and how to shuffle the rooms. And so the 4 of us ended up basically having to basically swap out the guy who basically had first gotten us into the building. So he had to break off from the suite from us. And basically, I won't lie, like I actually played a role in basically orchestrating this, because what ended up happening was at the end, because we couldn't agree on the single and double rooms and who wanted to share a room with who, it basically came down to a coin toss between me and this guy who would get the final room in the suite, and then the loser would basically have to break off from our suite group and move off campus. And so that day, history was made that day when I picked heads and it came up heads. And so that guy pretty much resented me for the remainder of the year. And when we graduated, cut contact. So apology is not possible in that case. So the noble right view then would be, yeah, it's fine. Like that's the way it is.
There's nothing that can be done to fix it. It's broken.
So it doesn't need fixing.
And we have to accept that.
Yes.
Yeah, we screwed up and it stayed screwed up.
Yeah. I think, you're
but
right.
But eventually you'll forget about it. That's what the Dhamma is all about, is just
eventually. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was forgotten about until we went on like a trip down memory lane of my college days, right? And then you're like, hey, there's this, and hey, there's that. But I think, this is an important topic for us to touch on, because giving apologies, that's something that's probably most strongly identified with the self as well, right? Embarrassment. That's pretty strong. I mean, I would probably venture out to say that half of the shit that I say, is out of like fear of embarrassment, right? Like when you're embarrassed, you have like a fight or flight response. You kind of speak a little quicker, and then whatever comes to mind, you blurt it out in order to dance around it. I mean, whatever you're saying here is spot on. And I think this is also something to play around with. These are small.
This is an interesting toy that I just gave you, is to begin to recognize that.
Yeah.
And you, in fact, accept your wrongdoing happily.
Yes. And, sometimes, when, now that we talk about this, while you were talking about this, sometimes I think back, sometimes even when I apologize to the Zen master, there is still room to play around with, because I can sometimes detect, those apologies, some of them, they're not really like that happy, because you're going and you're just like, oh man, like I have to apologize, come on, like like that kind of feeling. So I have seen this, and that's probably something to play with. Like can I actually have that full on joy even when apologizing to the Zen master? Some of the times, it's full on joy, it's great, but other times, man, other times it's not so. It's more of a, okay, let me just say the words and get this over with. And behind it really is an embarrassment, right? Because nobody, it's like, I don't want to feel wrong, right? I'm not, and now that you point it out like that, there is, there are some more toys to play with. So I would say, the mission, should I choose to accept it, is to at least, play around with the 2 apologies. One I can give in person to one of my high school friends. I will actually say, Happy New Year, let's meet up for lunch. And then I will just say, yes, this is something, that I have to apologize on. Basically what ended up happening was one day out of the blue, I called her, when she was interning, and I was like, hey,
details. We know what needs to be done.
Yes. Exactly. Let's not let's spare our readers some of the cringe here, and let's just say that we know our viewers, and let's just say that we know what needs to be done. And then so I think that was really the most productive stuff, that came up during the end of the week. It was on a Friday because, when we're shooting the shit, stuff comes up. And I was like, the girl responded. So I was like, okay, because I was thinking about sending the apology, and I said, okay, maybe before I send the apology, this is something that I want to run over with you, because I'm sure there are opportunities to play there. And then I was very surprised. Yeah, like this is something that I've not really looked at, embarrassment and apologies in detail, because that's really, man, like I guess that's another part worth
Well,
toying.
you've got the skills now to start to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Not everybody who watches this video is going to be up for this kind of stuff. What? To actually admit that I screwed up and to be happy about it? No way.
Yeah. And so, like so that's one thing. And then I'm trying to remember, like, I mean, I'm trying to think about, what else there is, like, that's coming to my mind, like, now. That's really the only big topic that I have as a result of this week. I'm just trying to think back, on Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. Was there anything in particular that really stood out to me? No. I mean, it's also, I'm open to whatever else topics you have. Like, I'm open to, not much from my side. That was really the thing. Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and finish it up. But the last thing that we'll talk about is that now it's up to you to begin to see the connection between generosity, gratitude, and this willingness to apologize. That when you apologize correctly with the right attitude, it's a gift that you're giving someone.
Oh, really? I see. Mm-hmm. So apologizing with joy is a gift. I see.
It's a gift.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
And sometimes we'd like to give that gift, but as you said, some apologies are just not going to work.
Awesome. Yeah, that guy hates my guts. That guy hates my guts. So, yeah, I see. Gotcha. I see. So, I guess
So here's the question on that one: who can forget first?
Oh, I forgot it. Like like a year.
He's going to hang on, but you can forget all about it. That's.
Oh yes, it's just that in the context of the noble right view we were talking about, I was like, that might be an interesting thing too, right? If you can't apologize, what do we do?
Well, you might find an opportunity. Kind of keep it way, way tucked back in the back of the brain, but there may come a time to bring that out, and then you can offer spontaneously an apology to him.
Yeah.
Blow him away.
I think that's also. I mean, it's also like like apologies is another habit to break, right? Because routinely we've been taught to give an apology after we feel bad. So most of the time when we give an apology, we feel bad. You know what I'm saying? So I see it as, like, can you find, you're right, can you find the joy in giving the apology? even when they don't accept it, you give it, even if they don't accept it, then that's fine. Yeah, one second. May I say? Hold on one second. May I ask, say that again? Yeah, take that bag. It's over there. Yeah. Oh, it was just my brother. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, I guess that's the fun stuff. I'll definitely. I think how do I say this? Yeah, this is good stuff. I think by doing all these things, I will eventually come to have a more complete understanding of the noble right view. Because we keep talking about like a lot of things, right? The first thing I understand is like beyond like good or bad, right? And this is surprising. Sometimes I look for it, and it's like you said, it's very surprising that my aunt, so the Zen master, still has skin problems, and my aunt is just take the whole bag, and the Zen master, my aunt is is a Buddhist who has been in the Tibetan tradition for 20 years, more than that, 20, 30 years, and just the other day, she was just telling all this superstitious stuff to the Zen master, saying, you want to wait until the 15th of the month to see the doctor for your skin, and all these things, and good merit and things. And I'm sitting here like, are you? I didn't say anything because that's just setting yourself up for dukkha, right? Everybody's saying that this is the wrong, like the wrong thing is basically just. I just sat there and I'm like, wow. Talk about superstition. I'm like, really? Like, I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, so.
There is at least one occasion I know very much about is that the office had to be rewired for the network after the feng shui guy came in to tell them how to rearrange the furniture, and that required a whole new set of wiring all over the place. That was back in the days when Ethernet was.
And I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And some of my other cousins, were talking to her about like a relationship problem, and I was just sitting on the couch because it was a New Year celebration. I was sitting on the couch, and I heard things like, "Oh, you guys were brothers in a past life, and so you're kind of together, but you're not." And I'm like, "No, like this is not like." I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "No."
Okay, this comes under the classification of enjoy the show.
Yeah, I was just sitting there, and I was like, no, 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 like no. And
you can laugh right out loud. In fact, that's possibly the best answer to it, is when she says something ridiculous that you just laugh right out loud. She'll get the point.
And it was absolutely like, I was like, this is obscene. Like this is not like what. And I was like, you would have a kick, listening to me, showing you all this, like telling you all this stuff. I was just like, what?
But ladies who have in all of that and they say all of that, they can get away with it because nobody's laughing at them. If you just begin to chuckle when she says stuff like that, she'll be more careful about what she says.
Yeah, and they talking about fortune tellers in the future. And this is also something. I mean, I guess we have a little bit of time. I mean, it's a Saturday because if you have time, I don't want to take us all your time. And this is something that there's actually two things now that we're getting into this. Like now, again, like the first thing is, like, how do we? So our understanding is like all of this is a horse shit, like, right? Like all this stuff is a storytelling. But how do we say that? How do we understand it when like a spiritual leader like the Dalai Lama, right? He talks about say all this stuff, or the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. Say that the Tibetans, right? They talk about the mind stream, and that the High Lamas point out where the next reincarnation of the.
Oh, you don't know that the Dalai Lama has called all of that stuff off?
I don't know. I know that he said that
now,
he's
not in charge of all of the Tibetan traditions. He's only in charge of one out of four, but it's the predominant one.
Oh,
and he's calling that off, you see, because the Chinese government called their bluff on it.
Oh.
How did they do that? When the Panchen Lama came along, the Chinese government grabbed the Panchen Lama kid, and who knows what happened to him. But then the next thing you know, the Panchen Lama shows up, but it's a different boy that the Chinese government designated as the Panchen Lama.
They subbed him in. Exactly.
Right. And so to keep the Chinese government from kidnapping some kid, the Dalai Lama is calling all of that stuff off. Right. Now, the Dalai Lama could not call it off if the Dalai Lama actually believed in that stuff and believed that it was important. He can only call it off because he recognizes that the Chinese government actually has called their bluff on it. That the Tibetans have only been doing this for about 700 years.
Oh, so you're saying that like the mind stream thingy, that was a political thing that the Tibetans have, and he actually recognizes that the Chinese can play the game now, and so he's
entering the game too. They can play that same game.
Ah, I understand now, because
now here's a question for you. Imagine that you were a mother who had a little kid about 3 years old, and all of these weirdly dressed guys showed up. One of them's carrying incense, another is carrying a big bag of old junk. And they say, "Oh, we think your kid could get a really good education if he came and stayed at the temple. Why don't you give us your kid?" Is any mom going to do that? Give up their 3 or 4 year old? Just because a bunch of old dudes show up with a bunch of junk?
Oh, I get it now. So they say, "Oh, yes, he is the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama."
Precisely. So they feed her a line of bullshit so that they can get the kid.
Oh.
So naturally, any toys that the kid picks out to play with out of that back box of old junk, they'll be able to tell them that this kid is playing with the trinkets that he had in his past life.
I understand now. Oh, okay. So that's the way to understand it. I
Now,
see.
this is a real story that actually happened. Is that one of the monks in one of these Tibetan temples? They did that with him or whatever, and so he grew up believing it, and so he remembered then a particular altar or a set of desk equipment or whatever that was set into an altar, and he says he remembers that from a past life. And everybody lets him get away with that until finally it's pointed out or somebody discovers, or maybe there's dates on the wood that the wood or the altar was constructed only just before he was born. Or maybe even when he was a little kid.
So that's actually,
it did not happen in a past life, and he's reconstructing a memory.
Oh, he was conditioned
based upon a feeling. When he has the feeling of recognizing that, and we already know the feeling of recognizing things is built into the psyche, it's called deja vu. When we have the feeling we've been there and we've done that before, well, that's what people have as their basis of their past life.
I see.
And so the Tibetans have been capitalizing on that belief until now the Dalai Lama has recognized the jig's up.
Oh, okay. I see. Gotcha.
The jig is up. We're going to have to stop doing that. But it was working in the sense of, I'm really glad that they grabbed the Dalai Lama when he was a kid. Because I would rather to have, at least occasionally, a young boy raised by very high quality, if not noble, monks. As opposed to just your ordinary family that's going to give him the ordinary crap.
I see. Gotcha.
And that's one of the reasons why these guys who grow up like that or wind up being superstars in the system is because they got such a high quality childhood.
I see. Gotcha.
That it's almost that you can raise a child enlightened and he will naturally be enlightened.
Oh yeah, it's probably easier to raise a child with the tools that we have now, so that they won't have habits to unlearn, right? So yeah, I mean, this is good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad music we learned to play as a child that needs to be unlearned.
Yeah.
Like being afraid and unhappy about getting caught doing something wrong.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Because kids get punished. They want to lie about it. I don't want to tell the truth. The joke is, the kid's got pie all over his face, and mom says, "What happened to the pie?" And he says, "I don't know. I didn't eat any pie," and he's got pie all over his face.
Gotcha.
All right, so that's how we want to avoid punishment. We want to avoid doing things, and in order to do that, we protect the self. So even having belief and reincarnation and having memories of past lives is in a way of trying to protect this self.
I see. Gotcha.
But the truly noble way of doing it is, let's not try to protect that self. I could be absolutely joyful and still admit wrongdoing and pay the price.
I see. Right. And pay the price. I can still...
And happily pay the price, as if it were a gift that I'm giving someone. Whatever the price is asked, I'll gladly give it.
Right. I see. Wow. Okay.
And I'm willing to meet my retribution.
I see. Yeah, I guess this is all about that fearlessness, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. This is fearlessness.
Gotcha.
We're no longer afraid of getting caught for our wrongdoing. Therefore, we don't have to hide it anymore.
I see. Okay.
We're already dedicated to being at the end of dukkha. Let's do what we can do, and the rest of it has to fall into place.
I see. Gotcha. Wow. Yeah, I actually forgot the second thing that I was going to say now that we went down this rabbit hole. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember what the second thing I wanted to say was. There are two things. Damn it. Damn it. Okay, but the rebirth stuff is very interesting because yeah, I mean, I already know this is horseshit, but I could never quite explain. So I always keep my mouth shut when it comes to things like this because my aunt can get really intense about it. So don't. There's no point for me to just say, yeah, that's wrong. Just to stir up the thing. So every time she says something and she starts talking about the feng shui and the Buddhist stuff, I'm like, what? Like what? Okay, gotcha.
Go ahead and let out a laugh. You can laugh at it.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
You are so funny, Aunt Susie.
One day you're gonna be hearing about it's gonna be about like rebirth or like karma, and then 5 seconds later it'll be about like, oh, wearing blue on a Tuesday is not like it's like, oh wow, like
well, they've got all kinds of stuff in the Western, like don't walk under a ladder.
Oh, I don't step on a crack or something like that.
Don't step on a crack. Don't have a black cat. Friday the 13th is dangerous.
Gotcha.
The 13th floor of most buildings does not exist. It goes from the 12th to the 14th. You know that?
Oh, yes. Even my building here doesn't have a 13th floor. When I walk up and down the stairs, there's no 13th floor. It skips from 12 to 14. Yeah.
So whoever built that building is just as superstitious.
That's superstitious. I see. Wow. I see. I see. Now I'm just just thinking about more. I mean, because this is some food for thought, right? Like, maybe something to look out for is how like noble right view manifests. Because it's one thing to say that noble right view is going beyond good karma and bad karma. Like that's very abstract, right? And what I've learned today is, okay, so there's one thing that I already understand, which is whether an act is good or not depends if you look back, right? And you don't do things because you expect like, that's going to be some good karma and I'm good karma. So that's one aspect of noble right view. And then the other one is like you don't like why feel bad about some wrongdoing that happened before. So I have a feeling now I'm kind of curious, like whether there are more facets of noble right view that I haven't quite seen or haven't quite fully understood yet.
Well, we'll have to wait and see now, won't we? You'll have to start asking the right questions.
I'm kind of suspicious now.
Because actually, I've covered everything, but there's different ways of looking at it so that there's deeper insights that can be gained.
I feel like it's one thing to understand like it's one thing to understand like say a general theorem, and then it's another thing to kind of apply it, because I feel like it's easy to say, oh yeah, it's going beyond good and bad and not feeling too feeling good and bad and getting stuck there, but it's another thing to actually see it. Oh look, like apologies, that's good and bad. I actually did not see this until you pointed this out. So now I'm really suspicious whether there are some things I am missing. I guess we will find out in due time.
Well, okay, I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
How fast is your speech? And what are you doing with your right hand while you're speaking?
Oh, yes. Scratching and also twirling the keyboard and hella fast.
Because there's a bit of restlessness under that. But the point that we're here at, you could say it this way. And that is, instead of looking at things from right and wrong or good and bad, we begin to look at it from the perspective of dukkha and dukkha nirodha.
Still, the same
thing. What is dissatisfactory and what is satisfactory?
I see.
Because most of the time people only have, even if it's a fairly large range of choices, there's dissatisfaction in every choice. They don't come to finding a choice that is completely satisfactory, which you could call a win-win-win.
So is it that noble right view is the ability to actually be satisfied no matter what you're doing? Anytime you see dissatisfaction, you're basically it's not noble right view, because if it were, you wouldn't be dissatisfied.
Exactly so. Now that's another way of looking at noble right view, is being able to see above and beyond good and bad, above and beyond right and wrong, so that we can just see the only thing that needs to be done is to maintain this state of dukkha nirodha.
Oh, then that becomes a lot easier to recognize, right? Anytime you feel bad or anytime you feel dissatisfied, you're aha, that is ordinary view. Oh, I mean, then it becomes easy to practice. Oh, okay. Again.
Yes, it is. It's actually quite easy to practice. You just start looking for your little dissatisfactions.
Oh.
Anytime you find a little dissatisfaction, you say, I don't need to do that. I can be here now and enjoy the moment.
Ah, okay. Again. Oh, okay. I understand now. Okay. Because yeah, like it used to be the case that like noble light view is still kind of was still kind of nebulous, and then over many lessons we successively see bits and pieces. But I guess like now that you but
got me. You got me.
Yeah. But yeah, now that you spell it out like this, yeah, it's really do good. So it really comes back to the gist of it all. Yeah, anytime there's dissatisfaction, that is in essence a sign that we're probably looking at it from an ordinary like view. That okay, so the only thing to remember is yes, I can be satisfied doing this, and this covers the cases that we were talking about before, right? I can be satisfied and happy while giving the apology, and I can certainly be satisfied and happy while admitting the truth. Okay, I see. So that will automatically lead me into the noble right view. Right. I see. Got it. Okay.
Got it.
So don't worry too much. Okay, don't worry too much about understanding noble right view. You already got it. Yeah.
You did it with the wrong hand.
Wow, very observant.
Yeah, you should do that with your right.
Wow, yeah. All right.
Never mind, I'm just teasing.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So, I will give you a mission briefing, next week.
Excellent.
Let's give it a run. See how it goes.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
See you later.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.